I think that we tend to have this idea. We alluded to this last week and the week before, Zachary. We have these values that are so deeply embedded that we should either be able to look after somebody we love alone, and if we can't or don't, for some reason we fail in doing that and things fall apart, that there's some failure in our love for that person, our loyalty, and the power of our will to control the situation, to be able to meet all the needs. And then when we ask people to help who are closest to us and they let us down, we again experience that feeling of betrayal, of failure, of the failure of fidelity. And you should, just by watching me kill myself here for Mom, you should be able to step in and just know what needs to be done. Just give me a hand. Come on, ask me. And it's interesting. I want to propose an idea here that I had a long conversation with my caregiving colleague, Vicki Kamak, about, and she introduced this idea of a clean transaction of care. And what she meant by that was, I know that what I'm going to do is doable, is I'm in and out. I know that I've made a contribution and that it's been valued and that it's not messy. It's not, I don't know if I'm leaving halfway through. I don't know if I'm going to be needed again tonight, tomorrow. It's a transaction of care that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So again, it comes down to project management. I am going to help Mom between 3 and 4:30 every Monday afternoon. And I'm going to devote that time, or whatever it is. And I know that that slot is filled and that I'm able to accomplish something that is valued and known by everybody in the circle of care. So this is again coming back to the idea that everyone knows what each other is doing. And whatever I'm doing, I'm good at, I like it, and I'm using my personal skill sets to be helpful. So
I like that idea, Dawn, Vicki's kind of conception of a clean transaction. Partly it comes from Suhata and others who are really, I think, getting at this idea that you're talking about of kind of, as caregivers, we are understanding of equity or the lack of equity in terms of the sole responsibility oftentimes is disproportionate amount of caregiving falls to one. And within families, siblings, for example, if there's 4 siblings, we like to divide that. In an ideal world, it would be 25% each, right? But as you're talking about, sometimes oftentimes that's not the case.
No.
And because it's not, it's viewed through the prism of history and relationships. Yep. Whereas when you make that move into the neighborhood and those who might be willing to help because it is a cleaner transaction simply because it doesn't involve the emotional weight and future responsibility other than the task that you're asking to be fulfilled in that moment or series of recurring experiences.
Yeah, that's right. And, we talked an awful lot last week really about when people do not step up for whatever reason. And these are the people, our greatest expectations are of them because they are the closest people to us. And we just assumed we could rely on them and we can't. That's a harsh reality that many people face. So, and we also talked about sometimes you need to put them aside and say, okay, forget about it. I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm not going to bark up that tree anymore. I'm going to look for strength and solidarity and support from other caregivers online or in real time. And I'm going to propose here about looking into the neighborhood. I want to introduce this concept of asset-based community development. So, asset based community development is really an idea that developed. Basically, it was founded by John McKnight and others in Chicago. John's like 86 or 87 years old now. And it started as community organizing in neighborhoods that were where there was a lot of poverty. And these people were visionaries because they said, we don't need people to come in from outside with services. We need neighborhoods to understand who's who in the neighborhood, what they're good at, and if they're willing to trade it. And we know what we need. We don't need somebody coming in and swooping in and telling us what we need. So it's about relationships, and it's about looking for assets in the community. So this is this idea. And I got really interested in it for caregiving communities. I thought we can really use ABCD. We can become our own community organizer using these principles of what do we have in our household. I mean, one of the things that my mother suffered from most before she died was a lack of meaning and purpose in her life. She really, really wanted to be useful. She wanted to have conversations with people other than me about asking her, Mom, have you eaten today? Mom, when was the last time you showered? She wanted to feel useful. She expressed that all the time. And I think one of the chores that we have is to find meaning and purpose in the loved ones that we have who have dependency needs. We need to find resources for looking for practical help, professional help, and for mental health supports in our communities. So I want to talk about, I just did a little exploring on my own for fun, looking for some of these needs. And if you go back to the 3 tasks that you identified, so this was just something that I did pre-COVID for my mom before she moved into assisted living. And this is an actual piece of paper that I did. I thought I listed the needs. This is what we need in my family. And where could I possibly get, what are possible resources where I could get these things? So I thought about, we need more home care and personal support for Mom. I thought, okay, I'll go to the case manager and ask for more hours. That's for provincial help. I thought, yeah, well, she just got diagnosed with dementia. Maybe the Alzheimer's and Dementia Association maybe they have a program. I'm calling them. I called our insurance company, of course, to say, what's available on the insurance for more help at home for my mom. And then I thought caregiver online support groups might have advice about this too, because maybe they've been successful. And I thought, okay, local high school. I go to local high school for everything for our son. And I thought, why not go for... Mom needed company often more than anything. These are just some ideas that I had. And it was personal brainstorming, matching up needs and possible resources. And I just want to, before I move on to the next slide, are people chatting in the chat box, Zachary? I'm looking at your
absolutely,
eyes.
absolutely resonating with people. And, Lorna's talking about, she's listed a few items which she needs help with, and then presenting it to family, friends, and neighbors. And some tasks are appropriate for certain people and schedules. She says it's helping. It's not perfect. but it's hard to ask for help, isn't it? And she's articulating this. And
Yes.
are you, so in essence, I mean, can you go back one slide? I think it really, your visual here is speaking to what Amy's talking about. You don't see a name here, right, Donna? I mean, is that purposeful? Because, you know, with family, there's a name and a meaning, and rejection means something different. But when there's a need and a resource, it's no longer personal.
No, it's no longer personal. And I can't remember if I added this slide, but so recently in my own family, we had my brother-in-law had a major surgery. And so for my sister, especially during COVID, you know, you seriously can't leave home with somebody who's had a very major surgery. They're very immunocompromised. She needed food delivered. And I couldn't do it because I don't live in the same city or even province that she does. So we weren't even allowed to travel at the beginning of the pandemic. So I found a website called takethemameal.com. And it is the greatest little website for friends to sign up on a certain day, and you show that you're going to deliver a meal to that household, and you say what it is that you're delivering. So people signed up to bring my sister. Oh, the best one was crab or lobster burritos and a jug of margaritas. That was the best one. I'm coming over. But everybody really brought something, and the list of people who signed up, and my sister said, oh, people are telling others, their friends, we got a case of oranges on the doorstep today from somebody I don't even know. That is a clean transaction. I'm going to cook one night, but so are 25 other people, and we've got like a month covered. And next week, I'll be presenting a lot of these technologies that take away the burden of asking for help, for particularly where you've got that background with them. You've got that baggage with them. You know, I know you're going to say no, but can you please, please, please? And, you know, the person you're speaking to just tenses and looks away. Like, you don't want that. So there are techniques and strategies to remove that uncomfortable quality about asking for help. And certainly we're going to discuss that in detail next week. But a lot of it is doing this and depersonalizing the ask by making it into a project that needs to be managed.
And even though it sounds almost heretical to say, or to say that, you know, how can you turn what you're doing with your loved one into a project or a project management experience? But that's one component of it, so that you can get to the social and the emotional and the connection and the intimacy with your loved one and whatever that pre-existing relationship. That's so valuable, because those who are not in caregiving may not understand what you're highlighting in terms of a care map and identifying tasks that you would like to give away or be able to outsource in very particular ways. But we have some people, Donna, who are really already, you know, really enacting some of these ABCD principles you're talking about. Lauren is talking about the city she lives in has a base of volunteers called Friendly Visitors. And she and her husband have a chat with them once a week. So I'm glad to see some of the participants are already enacting some of the things you're talking about. Have you found, Donna, that when you do this, when you've done this, that you might find portals to community connections and relationships with people who fill these resources and needs for you that you couldn't have anticipated?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's for sure. You know, when I was looking after my kids, when I guess Nicholas, our son with severe disabilities, he would have been like, oh, I don't know, 12, 11 or 12 years old. And then my daughter is 3 years younger than Nick. And I needed to, I needed to play with her, and I needed to make dinner and walk the dog. It's that what mothers call arsenic hour, getting everything ready after school, helping homework, walk the dog, make dinner. And it was like just crazy. And I needed help after school. And Nicholas is not able to amuse himself. He can't, doesn't have hand function. And he really loves sports and computer games, but he can't play computer games. So my idea was to call the local high school and get somebody just to play computer games with him for an hour and a half after school and give me that time to focus on Nat and getting stuff ready for supper. So I got this guy who was recommended by the guidance department, and his name is John Builder. And he is now 38 years old with 2 kids, and he is Nicholas's honorary brother, my honorary son. At first, he didn't say a word. He was so nervous. He was only about 15, and he was playing the computer games, not saying anything because he was so shy with Nicholas because Nicholas was different. But he stuck with it. And at the end, he learned how to do all of Nicholas's care. He came up to the cottage for the whole summer with us. He went on holiday with us, body surfed with Nicholas. They went abseiling. They did all kinds of extreme sports together. Him holding Nicholas, and it was just like the best. It was like having a big brother. That began with a phone call to the local high school, and it evolved into John will be in our will as part of the future power of attorney for Nicholas after we die. These relationships can certainly develop into something from outside the family, from something that is completely like just going to try this, come in and have a conversation. This is a conversation partner. This is somebody to play computer games, to somebody who is in our family now.
I love that story. It's so powerful because it emphasizes this point that as caregivers, we no longer have the luxury of being restrictive in our titling of relationships with people. You mentioned how this individual became Nicholas's brother, in essence. Other people can be loyal to titles that once worked for them. And we maintain our pre-existing titles with siblings, but if they're not, we can be open to flexibility about titles of brother and connection and people that we bring into our life and are more open because that openness is a source of connection for others rather than closedness and focusing on that one sibling who won't do what we want them to do. No amount of begging or pleading over time will change that person.
No. And it's we may have a myriad of needs, and hopefully some of these strategies of care mapping, etc., will help to identify more precisely what those needs are. But expecting one person who you grew up with, like a sibling, to meet those needs is, I think, sort of unfair to that person. It's interesting. I'm very close to my sister, and we were fantastic care partners for my mom. We worked really well together. She was a completely different style than me, but we complemented each other. So we always say, "Oh man, we were lucky. It worked out okay." But I have a group of girlfriends that we call us the sisterhood, and we're so close. We love each other, and they're my best friends. We are the sisterhood. And when my own sister heard me saying, "Oh, my sisters, my sisterhood," she was like, "They're not your sisters." I'm hurt. I said, "You're my sister, of course. But these people, for when you're not there all the time, they fill a great big space in my heart of love and laughter. I don't share the history of family with them, but they have a very important place in my heart." And then my sister's best friend, I said to my sister, "Your friends, Catherine and Kurtley," and I'm naming her very best friends. I said, "They are your sisters." So sometimes these labels, like you say, we have to drop the toxicity around those labels, the disappointment, and invite more people in to fill what we need in our perfect definition of what sister brother means.